Hey, Nate here from Blend Marketing. Excited to kick off this video series on growing revenue through direct bookings. We know that this is a really important topic for tours, attraction, and activity companies, and we want to provide insight into what we've seen work in recent years and try to give you some actionable steps to take to help accomplish this for your business to grow revenue through direct bookings. It's going to be a 7-part series, and it will be led by different members of the Blend team who have different expertise in some of the areas that we will cover. So wanted to start with this question: why direct bookings? Why take a whole 7-part video series to talk through driving more revenue with direct bookings? Well, kind of the easy answer to this is that this is a really hot topic right now, and we get asked a lot of questions about how to move bookings away from OTAs and towards direct, or just to maintain the OTA revenue and increase direct revenue. And so we want to address a lot of those questions and give some tips to make progress in that area. But there's at a more like philosophical level, there are a few reasons why we feel like direct is just really important. So it's important for your brand. When a customer books through an OTA, you're handing the reins over to that OTA to guide the experience that customer has ultimately with your brand, right? And it's not inside of your brand, it's inside of the Viator brand, or whoever the OTA is that they're booking with. Whereas when they book direct with you, you have full control over your impact on that customer before they book, as they're booking, and then after the experience. You have the ability to follow up with them and keep that kind of brand impression going on that customer. Direct bookings are also better for your business. When someone books through an OTA, you're missing out on so much good data about that booking that you would have if they had booked direct. Web analytics, booking flow data, the ability to remarket to people that don't end up booking but showed interest in booking by getting to a certain point in the checkout flow, or just by visiting your website in general. And you don't have the ability to remarket to the people that are hitting the OTA's website. Exportable user data is a really big deal in the day and age that we find ourselves in. And you don't normally get that from the OTA. And when they book direct, obviously you have the information that you collect during the booking process. Higher lifetime value kind of goes back to the direct bookings are good for your brand piece. When someone books direct with you, they're going to be more likely to book with you again, versus if they book with an OTA, their instinct is going to be to go back to that OTA to find something else to do, which is where often a lot of your competitors are. So if you can get them to book direct with you, there's some loyalty that you can build with that customer. And then the last one, there's a limit to how many bookings OTAs can and will drive for you. And direct bookings are often more scalable because you have control of the kind of the dials, right? Like if you've dialed in a successful advertising campaign that it has some ability to scale up at a similar ROI to the OTA's commission, you can scale that spend up to help fill excess capacity that you might have. And we often find that the ROI is similar to the OTA's commission, and can be ultimately much better for your business. And you get all the other benefits of that customer booking direct with you: the analytics, the exportable data, the lifetime value of the customer. It all kind of builds together. And then the third reason is OTAs are in it to win, and they're hard to beat. OTAs are sophisticated companies with often bigger budgets than you have. And so you have to be smart about how you approach the fight, if you will, to drive that revenue that's coming from the customer direct versus through the OTA. So what are we going to cover in this series? It can be summed up in two broad categories. First is that we want to give you a strategic framework that you can work inside of to drive more direct bookings. And I'm going to introduce that framework a little bit later in this video. And then in the next 6 videos, we're going to show you how to apply this kind of 3-step process that I'm calling a strategic framework to your most important direct booking channels. So the channels that we'll focus on will be search, social, and your website. And from years of doing this and from some research that Arrival has done, it feels like those are the 3 kind of direct channels that are worth most of your time. Okay, so what I want to do today is talk about why direct booking strategies tend to fail, and then what you can do as a business owner, marketing director in your organization to change that. I want to show you a framework that you can create to build a more sustainable direct booking strategy inside of. So kind of the primary reason in a word that direct booking strategies fail is that it's hard to beat OTAs. But to go a layer deeper than that, the path to conversion is complicated, right? And it's getting more complicated, especially as users, your guests, your prospective customers are spending more and more time in the research process. There's a lot of data out there that shows that people spend a lot more time researching what they're going to do in destination versus how they're going to get there or where they're going to stay. And so winning at each one of these phases and the phases in between these phases is really important. And we've found that you can't just win at 1 or 2 of these phases to get that direct booking. You really have to win at all 3. And then the other layer on top of that is that, we're not selling a commodity. Nobody needs an experience. And so it's on us to convince them to invest the time and money in your experience. And then as they're figuring out where to invest the time and money, you're going to win at each of these phases. So I want to show you some areas where we find a lot of companies failing to drive direct bookings because they're not winning at 1 or more of these phases. So here's one example where perhaps you have a clever awareness strategy where you're running some in-destination Facebook ads for people who are traveling in the area who aren't from the area. And the ads get great engagement. There's positive comments, likes, people sharing it, decent click-through rate to your website. Your CPC is relatively low. But what you find is that despite that engagement, the direct revenue isn't flowing in. And the breakdown that we've often found is that people find you via this ad, talk to their family, and then go back to the search engine, and you're not showing up in the search engine, and the OTA is beating you, or somebody in Google Maps is outranking you, and so they go to a competitor, they book through an OTA, they never hit your website, and it ends up being a direct booking fail. Another example that we've seen is maybe you've got a great kind of library of content in a blog, and a lot of people are discovering your blog, but because your blog isn't capturing commercial intent traffic or people who have buying intent, there isn't a conversion that's happening on your website. And this isn't to say that blogs don't have a place in tours, attraction, and activity organizations, because they often do. Content marketing can be a really good strategy to drive more direct bookings. But if you can't take them from that no commercial intent and start to build commercial intent over time, you're not going to see conversions come through. And this can be a failing strategy. Another one here is that perhaps they find you organically. Maybe you're able to get them back in either organically or through some remarketing funnels. But because your website isn't building the same level of trust that the OTA website is building, perhaps the OTA has a more generous cancellation policy, or they are talking about a low price guarantee, and your site isn't mentioning those things, or perhaps is putting forward a less generous cancellation policy, well, the customer is going to choose the OTA in circumstances like that and book with them, and they won't book on your site, and you won't have a direct booking. And so we have another direct booking fail. And then another one is, and this is the last example that we'll talk about, is more focused on ad costs. So maybe you're able to find the right people with ad campaigns. Cost per click is a little pricey at the high end of the funnel, but you feel good about the people that you're sending to your site, and so you're paying that higher cost per click. But then you have to keep them in your funnel because your site isn't ranking where it needs to be organically, and so you have to spend more money to keep them in that consideration phase on your site. And then maybe your site converts really well. You've got a good conversion rate, but because you spent so much money to get them to that point of conversion, the ROI isn't sustainable, and you end up losing money for each person, or only making a minute amount of money. And it just makes a lot more sense to give the OTA 30% rather than these advertising channels 70% of the booking. And so this ends up being a direct booking fail that we've seen clients come to us with. So why do direct booking strategies tend to fail? You're probably getting a sense of this, but the answer is because you really need to win at each phase of the funnel, not just one or two of the phases. And then that's not even to mention all of these outside factors that you have little, and in some cases, no control over. The weather, for example, right, could be a huge factor for your tour activity or attraction, depending on what type of a tour activity or attraction you're running. Advertising costs, and you can set bid caps, but often advertising costs are largely out of your control. Local OTA usage, what your competition is doing, what the algorithms are doing. Pandemics, of course, are an outside factor. And so what can often happen, or what it can feel like you're doing, is you solve one problem only to dive headlong right into the next problem. So I want to get into the framework that I think you can, or that we apply to our clients to drive sustainable and successful direct booking strategies. But before I get into that, I just want to share an assumption that we're making about your business, or you could also call it a prerequisite to drive success, to have a successful direct booking strategy. And that assumption or prerequisite is that you've created a great product that your guests love. You've built equity in your brand, and all of those things together have given you leverage to charge what your tours are worth. Because this is where it all starts, right? You've got to have a great product that people love, an experience that your guests rave about, before you can have successful marketing strategies. And everything we're going to say in this video and for the next 6 videos assumes that this prerequisite is in place. And if it's not in place, I would encourage you to still watch these videos, but you need to fix that before attempting to drive a sustainable direct revenue, to have more direct revenue coming in through some of the strategies that we'll talk about. Okay, so on to answering this question: what should drive your direct booking strategy? So I'm going to walk you through kind of the 3-step process that we follow for our clients, and then you just need to apply this 3-step process to your direct booking channels, and that's what we're going to take you through in the next videos. So number 1, you got to have a solid understanding of your customers' behavior. This is what should really fundamentally drive your direct booking strategy. So, talk to your customers, understand their digital behavior, ask them about their digital behavior, read their reviews, the good and the bad, and then let those reviews, let what they're saying about your product, what they like and don't like, influence your product and how you shape and craft it and improve it. And then also, we're constantly sourcing ideas for web copy from reviews. So allow the voice of the customer to be introduced onto your website, into your ads, and we'll look at a lot of practical ways to do this, to kind of figure out what your customer's behavior looks like inside of some of the direct booking channels that we're going to look at: search, social, and on your website in coming videos. Your competitive landscape. You can learn so much from your competitors. Their wins can become your wins. Their losses can be something that you learn from and avoid. We're going to take a deeper look into a lot of tools that you can use to kind of spy on your competition in a totally legal way, and how to apply those learnings to your product and to your direct booking channels. And then lastly is your data. And there's two really important things here. And the first is that you want to make sure that the data that you are looking at is accurate and good data. You really want to have a professional look at your data, look at your analytics setup, make sure that your Google Tag Manager is configured properly, look at how your pixels are installed. And the reason that this is so important, and this is the second thing that I want to mention, is that you want to bring your data to life and make it actionable. There's a lot of different ways to do this. We love to visualize our clients' KPIs and goals in Google Data Studio, which is a pretty approachable tool if you're not familiar with it. There's lots of other ways that you can do this, but the key here is to make it actionable. And this kind of goes back to number one. If you're taking action from data that isn't accurate, you're going to find yourself in a vicious cycle where you're building strategies based off of inaccurate data. So don't do that. Make sure it's accurate, and then you can take action based on accurate data. And this is kind of the whole purpose of this three-step process, is to drive an actionable strategy. So mixing together what you know about your customer, what you know about your competition, what your data is telling you, and then creating a strategy that's actionable to drive more direct bookings. So I've mentioned this a few times, but what we're going to do in the next 6 videos is apply this three-step process to your most important direct booking channels. And we're basing that off of our experience in the space, where we've found, or what we've found to be the most important direct booking channels, and also off this study that Arrival did, where they asked travelers how they research tours, and they found that, no surprise, search, tour operator's website, and what we're kind of lumping together as a social category, friends and family, word of mouth, and social media, were the most important drivers of direct bookings. And so we're going to be diving into that. And what's up next is applying this three-step strategic process to search marketing, which will be led by Ben, our director of search. So stay tuned for that, which will be coming. And thanks for watching.